Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Back with you after another two-game stretch against the Buffalo Sabres, a home game for the Caps. They're going to be hitting the road a lot in November. And finally on the road last night against the Red Wings. Some big things to talk about. Let's get going. Caps Hockey Review. Here we go. And off we go. Caps Hockey Review underway. 2 wins to talk about today. We'll start with Monday's home win over the Buffalo Sabres. Home wins, we're not probably going to see too many of them in November because, well, the Caps don't have very many home games in November. A lot of time on the road. It's a good chance for this team, especially with these young guys working into the fold. It's a good chance to create some camaraderie. Get these young guys really acclimated and just, feeling like part of the family, as I'm sure they do already, but being on the road is a great way to bond a hockey team or any sports team for that matter. So that is the one. There's more than one positive to being on the road, but it's just a good way for a team to, like I said, build their camaraderie, build their friendship, build their relationship, their trust, whatever you want to say. Anyway, big win against the Sabres. Vitek Vanacek chalks up another win. And I said in the previous video, I'll just get to it right now. I said it. Vitek is cementing himself as the #1 goalie now. Sure as hell, somebody, I said Ilya Samsonov specifically, is going to step up and get a shutout this week. Well, that remains to be seen. And I'll get into this more when we talk about Detroit, but big surprise in net for Thursday's game and didn't disappoint. So we'll get there, though. I kind of, gave away the finish here right off the hop. But anyway, Buffalo Sabres. Caps played a good game. I mean, we're seeing, especially these last couple games, and the Caps have to be a different type of team. They're missing, like I've talked about, they're missing Mantha, Backstrom, Oshie. Nick Dowd would get hurt during this game, so the Caps are down 4 of their regular forwards, 3 of them being top 6, and Dowd's their best face-off guy. So they're a different kind of team now. If you remember back to the 2018 playoffs when they were down a bunch of guys, you're a very skilled team and you can score a ton of goals, but when you're missing these big guys, you have to change a little bit. Yes, your young guys are, skilled and they're going to produce offensively, but you almost have to become more opportunistic and you have to change the way you score. I mean, we saw a ton in that Sabres game, Ovi and Wilson both sitting right in front of the goalie, like in layers, and setting the screen, looking for tips, looking for rebounds, looking for those greasy goals. I mean, that's what it's going to take. You're not going to have a ton of pretty goals here. It's just not going to happen. They did score some of those in this game with the Sabres, but a lot of tips in front of the net, getting a lot of traffic to the net. You got some big bodies on this team. Make it hard for those opposing goalies. You can't stop the puck. It's a lot harder to stop the puck when you can't see it. So they did a great job of that. Getting to the net, it doesn't matter how it goes in. What matters is that it goes in. Crosses the goal line. Doesn't matter if it hits your hand, your stick, your skate, your body. Doesn't matter. So, the Caps playing a little bit different. I mean, usually we're seeing, a high cycle game, a lot of play on the wall to kind of free up some space in the middle. They're not doing that quite so much in this Buffalo game. They're getting right to the net, which, opens up your point shots a little bit, and that's what's going to set your tips. So, I really, really like the way they've adapted, and obviously with a regular healthy lineup, we're still going to see that because that's just part of hockey, and that is a really integral part of scoring goals in the NHL. You have to go to the dirty areas to get them, and that's just how it is. So I really like this. I like the way they've adapted, and I like, they're not sitting back and it's like, oh, well, we're missing a bunch of guys. We'll win when we get them back. No, they're going for it. They're not folding their tent and saying, oh, woe is us. We have a bunch of guys injured. Next man up and let's go. I really like what I've seen so far from this team with all these injuries. They played really well enough to win more games than they have, and they've won a decent amount of games. So really good things so far. And this Sabres game, Tom Wilson chipping in on the goal sheet. Finally, he's had a ton of assists, great stuff. And I'm going to say this again, because Ovi's chipping in the assists, Wilson's chipping in the assists, and of course Kuzi's chipping in the assists. This top line for the Caps, Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Wilson, are buzzing. And they have to. They have to right now, especially missing all these key guys. If they're not scoring every night, it's kind of a crapshoot. Who else is going to do it? A few guys are going to step up and they're going to put the puck in the net. But without this top line doing their thing and doing what they need to do, the Caps are not going to win games. So it's a great thing for this line to still be finding ways to create offense. I mean, and getting back to the assist point, I'll say this again. Any hockey coach, anybody who's been around hockey for long enough, those assists are just as good as goals. Now, they don't get the attention and they don't get that glamorous look like goals do. Guys who score 50 goals in the NHL get a lot more attention than guys who put up 50 assists. And for good reason. 50 goals is a huge amount. Assists, we can get into the debate about primary and secondary assists, but I'm not going to do that here because, quite frankly, I don't have the time, and it'd be a boring discussion anyway. So, assists, very important. These guys are assists, goals, if one guy's not scoring, the other two are scoring. And it just keeps going. So this line has been so good. I don't mean to gush, but they have exceeded expectations so far. I certainly didn't expect Alex Ovechkin at age 36. Age 36, we're still rolling with it. Age 36, best start statistically of his NHL career. Usually guys, like, how many captains in the league to begin? There aren't too many that are older than Ovechkin at this point. Like, just off the top of my head, like, Ryan Getzlaf, I think Patrice Bergeron might be a little bit older, but I'm not certain. I could be wrong there, actually. I think Patrice might be a little bit younger. Man, it's tough to find a captain older than Ovi, but a guy, captain or not, a guy at age 36 who's having the impact game to game that Ovi's having, you don't see it. I mean, this guy is defying logic. He's defying trends. Guys don't keep producing in the NHL at his pace at his age. They just don't. If you look at Gretzky's numbers, and I've talked about this before too, Gretzky's numbers after 30 fell off a cliff. Ovechkin has already scored more goals in his 30s than Gretzky did, and in less time. By a significant amount. I believe Ovi has almost 100 more goals in his 30s than Gretzky did, in about 3 years less. So he did something the best player of all time didn't do, and that's maintain his brilliance over his entire career. And I think when Ovechkin finally does get to the point where he's not producing, that's when he's going to call it a day. And you can't blame him for that. You see so many guys don't want to be a hindrance on the ice. They don't want to be a shell of what they were. They want to go out on top of their game. So, enough gushing about Ovi. I mean, I do it a lot, but for good reason. He's off to a great start. Evgeny Kuznetsov. Keep talking about him. 3 assists in this thing and the face-off numbers. My goodness gracious. This guy won almost 70% of his face-offs. 17 for 23. Kuz. Thank goodness. I don't know if he's been working on it or what's been going on, but he was fantastic. Usually he hovers, 45%'s a big night for him in the circle. Usually he hovers like, high 30s, like right around 40%, it seems like. So a big jump in this one. Is he going to sustain it? We'll see. But great job by him. And then, finally, John Carlson's starting to find his way. Couple points in this one. Connor Sherry is chipping in. We're kind of seeing that Connor Sherry that we saw in Pittsburgh when the Penguins made those back-to-back runs to the Stanley Cup. Sherry is an extremely, extremely dangerous secondary scoring option. He is quick as a hiccup, he has a great shot, and he's not afraid to go to the greasy areas. He is damn sure not the biggest guy on the ice, but he does what he needs to do to contribute, and you love to see things like that. So, the Caps, great game against the Sabres. Vanacek, unfortunately, would get a little bit nicked up there at the end of the game. Pardon me while I adjust my hat, folks. A little bit nicked up there at the end of the game. Kind of a weird play. Jeff Skinner from the Sabres kind of fell on him, and I think it was his arm. There was speculation that it was his leg, which with a goalie, you never want to see, especially with the groin injury that he had in the playoffs last year. Legs are so important in hockey, obviously, and for goalies, obviously, huge. So, Vanacek gets a little bit nicked up. That's really the sour note on this Sabres game. A couple of the Sabres goals coming off, turnovers in the Caps D zone or, on the breakout. Like to see that clean up. Those are really my two negatives for the Sabres game. Injuries, unfortunately, it just kind of happens sometimes. So, moving past the Sabres, I've gushed enough. I've gushed about all the boys, and I'm going to do it a little bit more for the Detroit game too. But we'll get there. Anyway, Detroit, Thursday night, first half of a back-to-back, their first of the season. You need it to go well. You can't be double shifting your top two lines there for the third period trying to get back in a game or anything like that, because you're going to be gassed for tonight. And I mean, if you really wanted to get what you need to get out of this game, you could watch, a 10-second stretch in the first period where the Caps scored 2 goals, because that's all the scoring that happened in this game. But you'd miss a much bigger story if you did. Yes, you'd get the score and the final outcome numerically of the game, but there's a huge story here, and everyone's seen it by now. But Zach Fukali, Capitals minor league goalie, Hershey Bears. I would say he's probably the Bears starter at this point, but 26 years of age. Anybody who doesn't know by now, Fukali was drafted. He was highly, highly regarded prospect in junior. He's the first 16-year-old goaltender in, I don't think it's junior history, but it's the history of the Quebec Major Junior League. First 16-year-old to record 55 wins in a season. At 16, your first year in juniors, to put up 55 wins as a goalie, that's nuts. He was, and granted, he played on a really good team. That Halifax Mooseheads team, I mean, they had Nathan McKinnon, Jonathan Drouin. They had a lot of good players, but Fukali was highly regarded coming out of junior for good reason. He won a lot of games. They won a championship. He made big saves. He had great stats. He had all the measurables. But he gets drafted by the Montreal Canadiens in 2013. Well, we all know in Montreal the net belongs to one man, and his name's Carey Price. So, especially at that time, I mean, Price was at the peak of his performance, his career. He was the best goalie in the world. By any measure, he was the best goalie in the world at the time. So, for a young kid there, I mean, you're drafting, for down the road. You never know what can happen. So, but he kind of gets lost in the minor system. To make a long story short, to keep myself from rambling on too much longer here, he kind of got lost in the minor system. He was exposed a little bit, not playing on, as good of a team. It's, his weaknesses started to show, and he struggled a bit. And he kind of bounced around quite a bit, played a lot of games in the ECHL. He's 2 steps below the NHL. And then Caps sign him finally last summer to a 1-year deal. Starts with the Bears this season, of course, and then with Vanacek, I don't think his injury is long-term. He's actually traveling with the team. I think it's just precautionary at this point. And, okay, we've got Samsonov, obviously, but we've got this other guy here, and I can't say kid because he's my age. He's actually older than Vanacek and Samsonov. So it was kind of curious. Like, is he going to slot in? Like, he'll probably play against Columbus. No, he slots in for the first game, and it's like, wow. Like, I didn't really know much about him before last night. Like, I'd seen, I'd heard about him, but I'd never really seen him play. So I'm like, this is an interesting call. But NHL debut at age 26. And what did he do? What did he do? He went out and posted a shutout, the 10th goalie in the last 25 years to post a shutout in his NHL debut, and the first in Capitals history to do the same thing. First goalie in Caps history to put up a shutout in his debut. Wow. What a game. What a moment for this guy. Long road to get here, but wow. What a performance. I mean, and he made some huge saves. I mean, Detroit was buzzing early. I mean, they could have had, 2-3 goals right off the hop, and he made some fantastic saves to keep the Caps even in the game. So, great job by him, and then a great job by the Caps defensively to adjust, pick up what Detroit was doing, and make it extremely, extremely hard for them to get back into those high danger areas. Detroit had a really good first 10 minutes, and the Caps adjusted and kind of locked him up after that. And then 2 quick goals, Dmitry Orlov. Big old one-timer from the point on a nice slick little feed from Kuznetsov. Buries the first one. What do they do right off the faceoff? They come right back. Lars Eller gets off the schneid, puts in his first of the year. Kind of a mini breakaway there, a nifty little move to get it in the net. Wow. It was a whirlwind. I mean, the Caps had plenty of their own good chances, and I feel they really owned the game after Lars Eller put the puck in the net, obviously, but really after the first 10 minutes. I feel like the Caps settled down, found their legs, and really started playing a game that suited them and didn't really suit the Red Wings as much. So, great job by the Caps, and congratulations and fantastic job for Zach Fukali. Does this change the picture for the Caps goaltending-wise? It's hard to say. I think at this point, Laviolette is 100% keeping his options open, and he's going to go with the guy who performs the best. So, if Fukali put up a good performance, but experience-wise, Vanacek and Samsonov certainly have more of that. So, it's one game. He played extremely well. I think, if anything, he probably deserves, especially if Vanacek's going to be out for, a couple games, I think he deserves a couple opportunities. I don't think he's going to, be the starter from here because, it's one game, like I said. But I think he absolutely 100% deserves the opportunity to keep showing it. I mean, maybe this was a fluke. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? I don't think there's too many flukes in that kind of a game, though. I mean, he made some fantastic saves, and it's definitely interesting. It adds another layer to this kind of goalie carousel, if you want to say that. The carousel keeps on spinning for the Caps, so it'll be interesting to see. The Lions haven't come out for tonight's game against the Blue Jackets yet. I would guess Samsonov's going to be the man since he was back up last night. I don't think he's going to go Fucale on back-to-back nights. That might not be very responsible, but we'll see. I said it at the beginning of the week, and every time... I'm going to stop saying this because every time I do, something else changes. Every time I say Vanacek is cementing himself as the starter, something happens. He has a bad game. Samsonov has a good game. In this case, he got nicked up a little bit, like I said, and... a third goalie came in and played extremely well, and just giving the Caps more to think about goalie-wise. It's always nice to have options, but at this point, it would also be nice to have your guy and who that you're putting in the net when push comes to shove, or when all the chips are on the table, when you need a win, and you have to go to your best option. Who's it going to be? Again, we don't know yet. So, moving forward, like I said, Blue Jackets on Friday night, and then back home quickly for the Pittsburgh Penguins on Sunday. First Penguins game of the year. Sidney Crosby may or may not be in. He might still be on COVID protocol, but he's getting real close to being out of that. So that'll be something to keep an eyeball on moving forward. Looking for 2 more wins. I mean, The second half of a back-to-back, it's going to be tough. The Blue Jackets have been a bit of a surprising team this season. So it's going to be tough, but as I said, they're all tough. They're all important. All 82 games. Nobody's going to give you anything for free. So keep working hard. That Pittsburgh game, they've been playing extremely well even without Crosby. And Malkin is still out as well. So Pittsburgh's been doing well. I mean, it's definitely going to be a tight game. I think, obviously both teams are depleted by injuries, and it's going to be up to the depth players to make it happen. Also, one more thing. Conor McMichael. I think he is a very, very, very good prospect for the Caps. And what I mean by this is I think he's starting to blossom a little bit. We've seen him score a couple goals now, but last night, I'll tell you, he could have had a hat trick last night. He had a lot of good opportunities. It just didn't bounce his way. It kind of happens in hockey, and it's insanely frustrating. But he had a lot of grade A scoring opportunities last night. Like I said, didn't bounce for him, but he's doing all the right things. If he keeps this up, he will absolutely stick on this roster even when everybody gets healthy. He's going to force Caps management and the coaching staff to make a tough decision if he keeps playing this way. And that's what we want to see. We want to see these young guys start to kind of force their way into the fold. That's how a team avoids these huge drop-offs after, once Ovi and Backstrom are gone. How are we going to keep from ending up in the basement of the league again? Having young guys like this who are picking up the slack as they're, retiring is a great way. Are they going to be playoff contender? Who only knows? But McMichael's doing an incredible job. Martin Ferravari's doing really well on defense. Hendrix Lapierre. Last thing quickly. Hendrix Lapierre started the season really well, got some really good experience, and did some good things for the Caps, but was in and out of the lineup. The news coming on Wednesday, he was sent back to his junior team in the Quebec Major Junior League. And the reason why, and I agree with it, with what Laviolette discussed, obviously he did some good things, but for a player like Lapierre, he's a skilled player. He's not a grind guy. He's not a fourth line guy. The best thing for his development, he's only 19. Keep that in mind. He's only 19. The best thing for his development at this point in time would be to play with more of his peers. I mean, when you step in the NHL, you're playing against grown men. You're playing against guys who've been pro for 15, 20 years. I think it would be better off in his best interest to play against guys more his own age for the time and develop a little bit more. Be a little more confident. He needs to play, 15, 20 minutes a night. Get some power play minutes. Get some meaningful minutes in a game. And he played a little bit of the power play for the Caps, but I think at this point in his career, he's going to make a great NHLer. If he stays on the trajectory he's on, he will be a great addition for the Caps. Maybe in the next year. But for the time being, I think the best thing in his interest is to play in juniors, to get a lot more confidence, and just grow. I mean, he's got plenty of opportunity down there, a lot more than he'd have with the Capitals or even with Hershey at this point. I think use his junior eligibility. Let him gain some confidence. So that's where we're at with prospects. I ran a little long today, but plenty to talk about. A lot of exciting things to talk about. Hopefully we will have more exciting things to talk about coming up after that Penguins game. That's going to be a big one. Big Western road trip coming after that. So big times for the Caps right now. Looking for some more wins. Hopefully they can keep her going. Till next time, go Caps.